Okay, good morning and welcome everybody. I'm extremely happy to be hosting the last presentation for the 2021 CE Culminating Experience presentation of our class that is, some of them are graduating this semester, and George Lernis is the last of this presentation, and his presentation is called Between Two Worlds, Combating Stereotyping and Racism Through the Power of Music. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of his advisor, Maestro Bruno, and also welcome from the New England Conservatory, Professor Mehmet Ali Stanley Cole. Thank you for being here. Mehmet has been George panelist today, but also advisor throughout the semester. So we're very grateful for your help. So George, whenever you're ready, it's all yours.
Fantastic. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. My name is George Lernis, and today I'm going to be presenting my culminating experience between two worlds. My Lord has created a city in between two worlds. One sees the beloved if one looks at the edge of that city. I came upon that city and saw it being built. I too was built with it, amid stone and earth. The poem that I just read to you was written by the Sufi saint Haji Bayram Veli and was translated by Professor Jemal Kafadar from Harvard University. I selected this poem for the title of my CE mainly because of the metaphoric message, the two worlds, which relates to my story as an immigrant being born and raised in Cyprus, who eventually moved to the United States. My mission with my project Between Two Worlds is to confront the ongoing stereotyping against immigrants based on their origins, religions, and skin color. As a Cypriot immigrant residing in the United States for the past 22 years, I have personally experienced stereotyping and can recall several unpleasant experiences. This constantly fueled a sense in me that I was unwelcome here as an immigrant. Even though I have not experienced stereotyping or racism to the extent that other communities keep experiencing, because of my own experiences, I am able to relate to this issue. The way I plan to fulfill my mission is by introducing the rich musical traditions of the Near and Middle East to Western audiences, introducing social activism through my music with the use of poetry, storytelling, and videography, following all of my concerts with workshops at higher education institutions, introducing educational programs and scholarships through our nonprofit Anatolia Ma, which is already established in the United States with my partner Vasilis Kostas. The first song that I composed during my time at Global is Prayer, which was inspired by the ongoing refugees crisis. One of the reasons as to why I decided to compose Prayer is due to the Syrian crisis being underreported in the media globally. And personally, having served in the Cypriot military force for 26 months in a heavily nationalistic environment, I was given a negative stereotype of Muslims. I can now see that this is unfortunately the case in other parts of the world as well. I would also like to mention that Prayer is based on a poem that I wrote with my mother, Eliza Savidou. Let's listen to Prayer.
Ω θάλασσα, σε οικετεύω, ταξίδεψέ μας σε ήρεμα νερά, πάρε μας μακριά από τον πόλεμο, τον τρόμο και τον θάνατο. Γέμισαν οι τάφοι μας, δεν χωράνε άλλους νεκρούς. Ω κύματα, σας σκέτευω, μην πνίξετε τα παιδιά μας, γεννήθηκαν στα ερείπια βομβαρδισμένων σπιτιών. Οι μάνες τους με τα δόντια έχοψαν τον ομφαλιολόρο και θα βίζασαν γάλα με αίμα. Ω θάλασσα γαλήνια, είναι σε οικετεύω. Λίγη ελπίδα ζητούμε, τίποτε άλλο.
Between Two Worlds is at the heart of my project and is based on Haji Bayram's Veli poem Between Two Worlds. It depicts my journey as an immigrant originally from Cyprus that eventually moved to the United States, and it presents myself as a bimusical individual equally proficient in the musical traditions of the Middle East and jazz, a concept introduced by ethnomusicologist Mantle Hood, which mirrors being bilingual in music. It is based on 3 movements, with each being one unique experience. During my studies with Mehmet Ali Sanlikol, I started learning and researching about exoticism in music. Being an immigrant myself that is putting up a fight against the ongoing stereotyping against immigrants, I feel that I need to be aware of this issue in order to avoid exoticizing and stereotyping unintentionally through my own original music. As a result, I carefully constructed and composed Between Two Worlds suite to avoid such issues. The first movement of my suite, the Rast Peşrev, is a classical Ottoman Turkish composition. I would like to give you some of the basics of this musical tradition. Makam is an advanced concept of mode where a 7-note scale does not apply. Furthermore, as we can see in this graph, this is a microtonally rich tradition as well. If we think of this graph as a major second interval, within this major second we have 9 flavors, microtones that we can choose. Rast stands for both a pitch and a particular type of makam. Please note that since notation in classical Ottoman music is fixed, musicians learn to side transpose when performing. As a result, this makam was transposed down a fourth in our performance. At first glance, Rast may resemble a major scale. However, these scalar representations are only 2 very simplified possibilities in Rast, and furthermore, both the written F sharp and B are slightly flat. In this first movement, you will hear 2 instruments, the oud, which is a fretless short-necked lute, and the santur, which is a type of hammered dulcimer. Typically, santurs have no microtonal levers, also known as mandals. However, mine is one of the very few that happens to have this quality that allows me to perform the complex makam traditions more accurately. I inherited this santur through the Duni ensemble directed by Mehmet Ali Sanlikol, which I am also part of. This santur originally belonged to a renowned early music performer, the late Tom Zajac. Indeed, this first movement is dedicated to Tom. I would like to play for you the introductory Taksim, instrumental improvisation of the Rast Peşrev. My second movement, zikr, is based on a ritual specific to the Islamic Sufi traditions. It literally means remembrance, and it is an Islamic spiritual devotional practice where sacred phrases are repeated. It also is the heart of this suite. By creating repeated layers and featuring Mehmet Ali Sanlikol, a bimusical soloist, I am able to transition from Ottoman classical music to jazz without stitching them together artificially, but instead in an organic fashion. Another reason that inspired me to compose a zikr for my transition is an outer body experience that I experienced myself a few years back during one of our performances with the Duni Ensemble. During this zikr performance, I felt as if I left my body and then returned back to it at the end of the performance. This experience is explained in the Sufi traditions as vejd, a spiritual state of selfless ecstasy. The second movement is based on a combination of the Muster trichord and the Buselik pentachord. In order to avoid creating conflict with the two microtonal notes, the F sharp and the G sharp of the Muster trichord, which are slightly flat and are used by Mehmet in his vocal improvisation, I composed a number of layers using the Buselik pentachord, A, B, C, D, and E. Let's listen to the zikr. The third movement of my suite is called Arrival, and it depicts my arrival to the United States and exposure to jazz. You will hear that certain melodic motifs from the first two movements are used here. In addition, I intentionally retained a model character to allow for a continuity in mood. Finally, the lyrics used in the melody of my third movement are based on Haji Bayram's poem, Between Two Worlds. Let's listen to my third movement, Arrival.
I came upon that city and saw it being built. I too was built with it amidst stone and earth.
The final song that I composed and that I will be presenting today is based on a Cypriot traditional song, Itrata Masikurelu, which inspired me to create this lengthier composition. Trata refers to the nets used by fishermen as well as the sails on the boat. Itratamas was a work song. It used to coordinate the rhythm of the workers on the boat. After its first recording in 1927 in New York, the song turned into a dance folk song and became extremely popular in Cyprus. Sailing Beyond starts reminiscent of the traditional musical colors, playing just an A pedal on the bass over a 7/8 Kalamatiano folkloric rhythm, while Burjukulej is singing the lyrics of the original Greek song. The B section of Sailing Beyond moves into a 12/8 Abakwa African rhythm and opens up to a solo section. As you can see, in the traditional lyrics, it talks about a patchwork boat that was sewed constantly, but it kept falling apart. One of the reasons that I was inspired to compose the song around this traditional folk song is the connection to the sea, being from an island myself, as well as the metaphoric message of the boat and immigration. Let's listen to Sailing Beyond.
Αν το ξέρε η μάνα μου πως δούλευα στην Τράτα, θα μου στέλνε τα ρούχα μου και την παλιά μου βράκα. Η βήρα μια στα πανιά, η βήρα δυο στο χωριό, η βήρα τρεις στο σπίτι της. Αν το ξέρε η μάνα μου πως δούλευα στην Τράτα, θα μου στέλνε τα ρούχα μου και την παλιά μου βράκα.
In conclusion, my plan is to continue composing music inspired by the musical traditions of where I come from, record a full-scale album in September with my original music, use social activism to promote awareness on ongoing issues such as stereotyping against immigrants based on their origins, religions, and skin colors, introduce educational programs and scholarships with our nonprofit Anatoliama in the United States, continue to organize multicultural events around the New England area, invite world-renowned artists from the Middle East for concerts and collaborations in the United States, have thematic concerts with emphasis on stereotyping and racism, having guest speakers, scholars on the subject of stereotyping that can open my concerts with short 15-minute lectures, and to continue teaching both the Near and Middle Eastern musical traditions and jazz. Finally, I would like to thank the Global Institute for giving me this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study here, more specifically Danilo Perez and Marco Pinataro, as well as Mary McClory, Jennifer Caraluzzi, and Anastasia Petrova. I would also like to thank both of my advisors, Bruno Raberg and Mehmet Ali Sanlikol for all of their time, advice, and for helping me shape my project. I would like to thank Patricia Perez for introducing me to the power of the social activism through music, all of the musicians that played in my recordings, Burcu Gulec, Chase Morin, Mehmet Ali Sanlikol, Bruno Raber, Emil de Jaeger. In addition, I would like to thank Christos Tsiaras for the wonderful videography, Matt Hayes and Daniel Babai for helping me with the recordings, mixing, and mastering, and most of all, my amazing wife, Alexia, for supporting me through this program. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, George. Very, very, very inspiring presentation. And we are starting now the section of the question and comment, and we would like to ask your advisor, Professor Sanlikol, to ask you a question or have any comment about the presentation first.
Okay, all right. I was hoping to go later, but all right, since I'm cold. First of all, I had this thought that I'd like to share with the with George's mentors and advisors and teachers here, a couple of experiences that I've had working with him over the past. By now, I think we've been working together for close to 10 years, maybe 8 or 9 years anyway. Because I think it'll perhaps give you a more complete picture about how unique an individual George is, in my opinion. I just want to let you know that when I first met George, I think about 8-9 years ago, and we started working together, and I was looking for just, of course, someone to come in and complement some of the traditional music that we were playing. I quickly discovered that he's equally a competent musician in a variety of jazz traditions, and so we started also then collaborating on some of my large ensemble projects in particular. But as we started working together, I remember one of the first things that happened, which also came up in this presentation, is George approached me and asked me whether what kind of an instrument, a melodic instrument, would I recommend for him to pick up, because that's what he wants to educate himself in. That is, he wants to really bring up and advance his level of hearing and so on and so forth in ways other than just percussion, and also a more basic piano level skills that he received earlier in his education. And I thought, well, there is the Santur. And so I advised him to pick up that instrument. And but I'm bringing this up to show you that out of many different musicians that I worked with over the course of past 25 or so years, he's the only one who came forward and said, "Man, I'm really interested in improving my ears. I really want to get into the microtonal, flavors. How can I do this? What's the best instrument?" So okay, all right. I think this may be the instrument for that. And he actually took it very seriously. We started working on the Middle Eastern maqam theory and so on and so forth. And here we are in that regard. That's just one. And then I started realizing that this is a generous, adventurous soul. So I started asking things of him. I said, "George, I think I want to assemble 10 gongs or something, and I want to write something that is inspired by gamelan music, and that I'd like you to play a cycle in 28 beats on the gongs while playing an Ottoman rhythmic cycle in 28 beats on the drums at the same time. What do you think? You game?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so we first had to assemble all of the gongs, and as soon as we found, I mean, he assembled all of them before even I could even, I could persuade him any further. I mean, this is the kind of spirit that George has. I kind of, and that's not the end of it. I've been making him play tubular bells, big kettle drums, in addition to everything else, and he just never says no. He just never says no to me. He's ready to dive into these things, whether it's the Rast Makam or or adventurous jazz composition, big band, kettle drums, gongs, you name it. So, I frankly, do I have questions for George? It's not so much I have questions. I've been working with him for all this time. I know him well. And I think this was a great move for him at this point in time. He learned so much throughout this program. I think he did all the right moves. And but I kind of just wanted to give you that background. I thought that this was the most meaningful contribution I could have made today. And so congratulations, my friend. You did a great job.
Mehmet, thank you so much. First of all, I want to say that I'm touched, really. And you're not only a friend and family to me, but a mentor. And I will always appreciate that from you. I'm very humbled that you put me in your family and you taught me, makam, because also as a percussionist, I grew up in Cyprus and I did have these colors in my ears. But, sometimes as percussionists and drummers, we don't get the opportunity to really like delve into melodic instruments, like you said. And the fact that you took me in your family and the fact that you accepted being my mentor and give me all this time and teach me, I'm really humbled and grateful and honored. Thank you, Mehmet.
Well, just to conclude, certainly the honor is mine, because you're certainly one of the very few people who take some of these concepts that I came up with seriously. So, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Professor. And I would like now to give Bruno Robert, your advisor, to the opportunity to ask you a question or comment.
George, congratulations. Big time. Your music really hits my heart every time I hear it. It's so soulful and beautiful and had so much depth. And the duo you're doing with Mehmet is just stunning, really mesmerizing. Can't hear enough of that. It's been an incredible pleasure working with you, starting in the composition course last semester. And you really developed so much as a composer, which is really amazing. And as Mehmet was saying, every time we met, it's like we worked a lot on the compositions, and especially the melodic, harmonic aspects. Rhythmically, I learned from you more than you learned from me, I think. Trying to play that loose 7/8 groove, that took me a lot of takes to try to get that. That was really, really a learning experience. But yeah, in terms of questions, maybe you can comment a little bit on how you think you developed as a composer this year, and what aspects that you added to what you already knew, etc.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Bruno, so much. I learned so much from you. Coming into Global, I had two ambitions. One is to develop, a project with a social aspect. And for me, immigration is very important, being an immigrant myself. But also coming into Global, I wanted to strengthen myself as a composer. And I think it was meant for the two of us to meet. And like, your class was amazing because you helped me a lot. You have no idea how much you helped me as a percussionist, because up to Global, I have a melodic ear. I was always able to write a melody that I like, but I was always kind of stuck on harmonizing and building chords. And as you probably know, my traditions are mostly based on melodies, actually, and microtones. So that's why I'm probably more, I have better skills at that instead of like harmonizing. So coming in your class, I learned a lot, like how to harmonize my melodies. And also you got me interested in actually buying a little bit of keyboard here and practice all of your lessons on. And yeah, I really feel that I'm more developed as a composer now, not just melodically, but now I have better skills in harmony. Of course, it's something that I'm going to keep developing, and composing is essential to me in parallel to my mission at promoting like awareness on ongoing issues such as stereotyping against immigrants. And my means to do that is composition, and videography and poetry. So I want to thank you one more time, Bruno, for both being my advisor and for being an inspiration and for all of your teachings. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Absolutely. I was thinking about we talked a lot about you blending the Middle Eastern and Mediterranean musics with jazz/world music, and you had you were thinking really heavily about that to make it sound organic and not shallow, and so I think you really succeeded in the music that you put together, that it sort of blends so seamlessly and organic and beautifully. I wish maybe you could talk a little bit more about the zikr movement, where tell me, because you had all these layers. Tell us a little bit about how you constructed that and what you wanted to achieve with that.
Sure. Actually, that's a great question, Bruno. And so I'm thinking where to begin. So first of all, the way I came to know what zikr is, is one performance that we had with the Duni Ensemble, which is Mehmet's organization and ensemble. He runs it. And basically, I talked about having that outer body experience, which I really did. It was a concert, just to put you into perspective and give you a little bit of my experience, now that I can expand a little more, is during this concert, me and I think Bertram was also playing percussion with me. We're playing like a simple rhythm, something like in 2/4. We call it a Sophian rhythm, which is something like doom, ga, doom, ga, doom. But in this tradition, like I mentioned, it's repetitive layers, right? We have the zikr, which we recite, but also the rhythms are repetitive. You're not supposed to really embellish and play fills and anything like that. So you get into this trance of playing one rhythm very repetitively for like 30 minutes, which is something that I, as a jazz musician, I wasn't used to, like the moment you put me on a drum set, I want to play a lot. But so not limiting yourself, because I don't feel it was limiting. In the contrary, I felt it was an amazing challenge, just being able to play one rhythm, and keep it sounding good and repetitive and keep going these cycles, So what happened during this performance, after like 10 minutes, I completely left my body. I was just playing one rhythm, but I was completely out. And then at the end of the performance, I came back. So having said that, this is what inspired me, first of all, to compose a zikr. I went to Mehmet and said, Mehmet, I really think my interlude should be a zikr, like connecting the first movement and the last one. So we were started to talk with Mehmet, how can we do this? Because Mehmet during this movement takes a ghazal. Ghazal is a vocal improvisation, and it's a microtonal improvisation. So the trick here was that Mehmet is using two pitches microtonally. So I was trying to think, well, how can I harmonize around that without clashing? So that's why I decided to stay away from those two pitches and then work on the pentachord above. And using that pentachord, the Busselik pentachord, I decided to create layers, multiple layers. So the bass line, for example, is one of those many layers. I had 2 layers of gongs. It starts with a simple version, and then it gets way more complicated. But one thing that was unorthodox about this zikr performance is the bass. Usually in traditional zikr, of course, there's no electric bass. But I want to give my reasoning also that I included the bass. To really experience a zikr, the feeling of ecstasy and vegged that I mentioned earlier, I believe we can only experience that in person, like being there and feeling the energy of 30 people singing the same pattern, and all these layers. So the reason I included the bass and the reason I decided to make the bass line being in a different meter than the one that everyone else is playing is to create that tension, that and ecstasy that you only receive if you're in person. So I would like to mention for everyone that Bruno, with his electric bass, is playing on a different meter. So he's playing over the bar line. I think your bass line resolves every 6 long bars, which was super tricky. So when I sent it to Bruno, I'm like, man, Bruno is not going to be my friend after this. But yeah, anyway, Bruno went ahead and played it. And yeah, and there's multiple layers. So I hope this answered the question to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Lastly and briefly, the ongoing tragedy and genocide that's going on, that you're addressing here, is really, really mind blowing, or that's not the right word. But I watch a lot of Swedish news, and there's almost something every day about tragedies happening, especially with refugees fleeing from not only Syria, Middle East, but also from Africa, coming in boats, having been ripped off by people that take their money to send them out on boats that very often sink, and you have 200 people drowning at once. It's hardly covered here in the media, I feel like, New York Times or CNN or whatever it is, but in Sweden and Europe it's covered, and it's such a tragedy that I can't even put words to it. And I'm grateful that you are addressing it here and that you're doing something about it. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you again, George. Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for working with you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely, Bruno. I agree, Bruno. This is very, very important. I think, George, that your focus on immigration, and it's really needed, and makes also your presentation, your music, very personal, and I find it is extremely evocative and powerful. I just wish that we could have heard a little bit more of your music. I feel like, okay, I want to hear more, so I'm looking forward when you're gonna put all the files, because it sounds really beautiful. My question for you is that you mentioned in the presentation that you inherited the Santur, and I'd be interested in listening how, if you can tell us about how was this experience of learning this microtonal instrument, and what did you learn in this process, which I'm sure it wasn't super easy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marco. Yes, so first of all, like Mehmet said, I've been playing with the Duni Ensemble for quite a while, and it is very unfortunate that Tom Zajac, which was a fantastic musician, passed away. And actually, I believe like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe a little longer, I went to Mehmet and said, like, Mehmet, I really want to learn an instrument that has the ability to perform microtones, and I really want to learn how to play makam. So being from the Middle East as a percussionist, like I mentioned before, I always had that desire, like I love percussion, but I always wanted to learn more about these microtonal makams. And what happened is Mehmet said, there's this santur that belonged to Tom, and they were gracious enough to give it to me. And once I inherited my santur, and I would like to also repeat that my santur is one of the very few in the world, actually. They're probably numbered 4 or 5 of these that were ever made that have mandals. Kanun have mandals, I don't know if everyone knows what the kanun is, but it's a similar type of instrument played with the fingers. Mine is a hammer dulcimer. But hammer dulcimers, specifically sandurs, you won't find a lot of them with mandals on. So what happened is I went to Mehmet and I started learning makam. And we started with Rust. We did some bayati. These are different types of makams. A couple of things that I learned is, first of all, that makam is not a scale, right? So one misconception that I had too is like, oh, like Rust is a scale. No, it's not a scale. In matter of fact, when we mention Makam and we categorize it as a scale, it devalues the meaning of Makam. So what I learned during my studies with Mehmet at Makam are constructed by pentachords and tetrachords. And in order to learn how to play Makam, we follow what's known in Turkey as the seir, which is the navigation. We learn how to navigate in these Makams. And of course, each Makam has different ways of navigating it. So in the piece that I earlier played for you is the Ras Makam. And as you could hear, sometimes the notes that are microtonal are a little flat, sometimes they're more flat. But however, there is a logic behind that. Like I learned with Mehmet, like sometimes going up, we keep it this flat, and going down, this flat. And I also did a lot of transcriptions. I would listen to a lot of masters like oud players, and I would try and mimic what they're doing and to get some of that language, very, very similarly to what we do in jazz when we're learning bebop, listening to a lot of Charlie Parker. I just happened to be learning Makam, and I was given a lot of amazing recommendations by Mehmet to listen to certain masters. And yeah, it's a working process. I think I have many years ahead of me becoming really proficient in this language, but yeah, this is a journey that I'm very happy that I started, and I'm very much looking forward, like taking it all the way.
Fantastic, George. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mark.
I would like to open now the floor for anybody in this faculty community for comment or questions. Maybe Maestro Joe Luano, thank you for being with us. I'm sure you want to say something to George.
Thank you, Marco. But yeah, George, fantastic, man. Congratulations. That was so beautiful. It was so great to feel your true life experience in your music and presentation. Really warm feeling, full of love, man. Your curiosity has really come into your approach with a fearlessness that is so beautiful, man. And what it's really about, to be creative and to explore your ideas in a free-flowing manner. I love the Santur, and I feel like your future on that instrument is just beginning, like to develop and create your own vocabulary within the language, and to start to really create a melodic approach as a soloist on this instrument, as well as accompanying and playing within the structures of the pieces, to really start to come out and say something with this instrument, And I love the way in the Makam you spoke of 9 flavors of the microtones. Yeah, like the flavors of the music in the different tonalities and keys. It all becomes one, And that I really felt like you're feeling that, and that's beautiful, man. The trance-like out-of-body experience to sustain a mood, in this music, but in jazz in general. That's the music that really captures everyone, is when musicians can sustain a mood, and reach different plateaus within their exploration of whatever piece it is, That is great. And the arrival to the States, okay, for you, the combination of jazz, but just the arrival, like through the journey and the voyage that you show in your first movement, not the first movement, I guess it was the prayer, right? That piece, I remember working on that and seeing that and discussing that with you in some of our private sessions this last semesters, right, on with Zoom. And I was touched the first time, man. It felt so amazing to realize like how deep these things are in your life and how it's coming together in your music. You know, you're going to educate everyone around you, and you know, we all have to be inspired to carry on, you know. And thank you for your work, because you were inspired and very inspiring, man. Beautiful.
Wow, Joe, thank you so much. And I want to once again, thank you so much for coming today. It means so much to me. And I have learned so much from you this year, you know, like during our directed studies lesson, you gave me so much inspiration, you know, and also sometimes the encouragement, like when we met so many times together, like the fact that you were encouraging me and giving me, you gave me so much positivity. And it's something that I needed. This has been such a dark year, you know, and like meeting with you, I always got this positive vibe, Joe, and you always like helped me, like you lift me up and push me, like you gave me a lot of strength to keep going. And I'm really grateful for that, and grateful that we had the opportunity to even meet in person and play a little bit. So thank you for everything, Joe.
Yeah, and I want to just say also, a few weeks ago when we all met, that was really fantastic, man, to hear you and to play with you a little bit, and everyone that was a part of those sessions that we just did. I'm looking forward to hearing some of those recordings. So Marco, feel free to send me some of those things, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that was fantastic the way that all played out also just a few weeks ago.
Yes, Danilo is producing it right now, so it's still in the work. So
yeah,
we will share it soon.
Great.
So George, I know you mentioned, thank you so much, Joe. You mentioned Patrizia Zarate influence of her class in your project. So I think, Patrizia, maybe this would be a good moment for you to comment.
Yes, George, congratulations.
Patricia.
And congratulations for also being an excellent student in my class and doing everything that that you had to do. And I have a question for you. Sure. So we've been talking about social activism all year, and social activism has to do with change, with making blunt statements, with provoking difficult discussions, with with making change, with using tactics for change. And I was wondering, how will you, with this music, will make those political statements and will provoke that social change with non-musicians?
Sure, that's a very good question. It's very difficult. You know, like one thing that I found out being, Greek, and that all these different communities are very tricky. You know, like it's not easy. that I know for sure. And I know, like, in my last 15 years maybe working professionally in the US, like I had a lot of like pushbacks too, like from, I don't want to mention communities, but I had a lot of pushback because of nationalistic views or whatever that is. And one thing that I realized over the years is some people are very hard to change, and maybe they will never change. But one thing that I know is that as an artist, I know where my values stand, and through my music, I think I'm going to be able to send a message to both the intellectually community, because one thing that I found is that this kind of music and this kind of statements are more well received by, certain people, but other people will see it and just completely, put it on the side. But my goal, like I mentioned in my conclusion of my culminating experience, is to really like take some actions, like opening all of my concerts with lectures by scholars on immigration and stereotyping, and set a mood for each of these concerts, a theme, if I may, right? And also promote awareness by simply doing simple things like, like doing workshops at academic institutions and promoting my roots, my Middle Eastern traditions. And by just doing that, I think if I am able to just like promote some awareness and maybe interest, inspire the younger generation, I think I would be most gratified by just achieving that. But at the same time, I'm also planning on incorporating videography, storytelling, and poetry in my music, and to do the best within my power to promote some awareness and hopefully change some minds.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you, George. And any faculty member would like to comment? Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
George, my brother in time and groove, man, congratulations for all your amazing work and your journey, not only in your entire career, but through the Global Masters program, and especially your inspiring CE. This is just comments of love, man, because we go way back, you, me, Mehmet, and Bertram. And when I saw you were in the program, I was so thrilled. And we worked together in the lessons and in the class, and just so inspiring. And you proved in your music something that I tell all my students, that discipline equals freedom. The deeper you go, the more focused you are, the more free you are ultimately. And that, bridges the discipline of the cycles on the frame drum with the freedom of the jazz. And it was challenging for me to find that connection, to find the discipline, but also feel that freedom. So it's clear that you were on that path, and it's really beautiful and inspiring for me. And I was very pleased, Mehmet and George, to learn of the connection between the santur of your tradition that you were playing and the santur of North Indian classical music, a different spelling, of course. Yes. And so to me, that was really just such a beautiful connection. And of course, the connection between the makam melodic system and the ragas of North Indian classical music, the connection with the nakara of India and of your tradition as well. I mean, I think tabla is next for you, man. And I know you have a lot you're juggling, but I just want to continue to encourage you to keep going deeper in that path. And, we go way back, like I was saying. So your humility, your grace, your generosity and kindness to everyone is really equaled by your skill as a percussionist, your professionalism and dedication to your craft. So I can't wait to hear and see more of your music evolve in the years to come. And I look forward to partnering with you in that in any way possible. So God bless you, my brother. And that's all I'd like to say. But thank you for the time to share my love. So be good.
Thank you, Jerry. I also want to say thank you. I learned so much from you over the years. For people that don't know here, Jerry was my teacher. I studied with Jerry both Indian music and African. We did some African studies today together. I mean, I studied with you and I learned so much. So you are definitely, you were a mentor. You are a mentor to me and a teacher, and I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. So we're running a little bit out of time, but still, if any other faculty would like to comment before Danilo closing remarks.
Could I quickly say something, Marco?
Absolutely.
Hey, George. Wow. Just want to congratulate you. Just beautiful project. It's just I want to echo and agree with everything everyone has said. Just such a beautiful in-depth presentation, really eloquently spoken and stated. So just congratulations on the presentation itself. That's a huge art form in itself. And I think that's going to be very powerful in the future. And I'm just really excited to continue working, to keep on exploring. I want to offer one encouragement for you. Just knowing you, we've been playing, seeing you in the class and seeing your presentation, everything. I get the feeling sometimes that you know so much. You're going so deep into these concepts, and it's such a beautiful disciplined approach to music, that you're getting into the nuances of these traditions. And this music And I encourage you not to forget the questions as well. You know, you're searching for so many answers, but don't forget about searching for those questions, and sometimes being in that place of unknown and not knowing what's going to come next. I think that could that space as well is something that can add a beautiful balance to your life and your growth as a musician. So congratulations, and looking forward to the next chapter.
Thank you so much, Chase. Thank you for the advice. I resonate. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. Danilo, you want to step in?
George.
Hi, Danilo.
Wow. First of all, I want to congratulate you. And Mehmet, I want to thank you personally, and your advisor, Bruno. The whole team. We have an incredible team that you know, the Institute is about promoting global jazz. It's a music that is inclusive and welcoming of different nationality. That's the idea, right? Welcoming of indigenous instrument, folk music combined with jazz as an anchor base. It's a place where we mix creative music with social activism and interconnected learning. They found the common tones. George, you just put it in that key. You know, that's the resonance that you're bringing to the table, and I feel proud of those moments that I've been with you, because you brought a level of maturity this year that it was very encouraging to me. And you have a heart of a child when you are learning. It's amazing how unsedated you are from education. A lot of students sometimes are sedated from education, and they take them time to want to learn about some new stuff. And you came out with this heart, just open as a child. And I want to tell you that every moment we were together, I learned as much as you did. And I have as much fun as you did. And you kept me younger. And you kept me excited to come up with new ideas, to drop. I dropped some stuff on you that I probably haven't dropped in any other students in a long time. You learned some stuff, and you got to tell Jerry about it. Jerry, I dropped some stuff on him because I needed to challenge him. He was coming with all this stuff like da da da. I said, okay. And you challenge, and you challenge with the heart of a child. That's amazing. Respect comes in two unchangeable steps: giving it and receiving it. And that's what you are, George. You have the master of responding, not reacting. You never reacted during the year. You responded every time. And you also reminded us that to make mistakes is human, and to stumble is a commonplace. But to be able to laugh at what you do, that's maturity. That's what you remind me. And I'm going to take that lesson with me. And I want to propose an invitation to one of my workshops with Mehmet, to come and join us and bring some of this vision that you developed this year doing that at the Global. I'm grateful to be part of this chapter of your life. And the only thing I want to say about the project, I got a little confused on the movement 2, because you put it on a scale, but the stuff you play was different. I'm a little confused.
George, hang on. Let me jump in there just so that I'll help you out with this one, because actually you did mention that we cite transpose and all that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's that. Danilo, in this Turkish tradition particularly, everything is always written fixed, but musicians typically transpose either down a fourth, down a seventh.
Yeah.
And it's very rare to play actually concert written pitch. So everything that George was putting on the scales were the kind of transposition you would see on paper, but we were playing pretty much everything down a fourth. So if you saw
Oh, so it was in D minor, it was in A minor, because that's what I heard it. Okay, I got it.
Sure, yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you.
There you go.
Thank you. Help me out. People like, in the Western world, I was all confused. I was like, what? What's going on here?
You have the right to be confused.
I think.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man. My ears are, I'm standing on the 12 tones.
One more thing I want to note, actually, this brings up something that is also common to both myself and George. And so it I think matters because it also relates to our immigrant experience. That is, neither of us actually knew or kind of neither of us were steeped in the traditions of our home countries when we came here. I didn't know a thing about Makam. Oh, I just had it in my ear a little bit, but that's only because it was playing in the cabs or buses that I took when I was 14 years old,
Yeah.
Same goes for, I think George may have a little bit more percussion awareness, but here's the thing. Both of us came to discover our roots. In my case, 7 years after my arrival in the States. In his case, something along those lines. So, that's another part of it. I grew up as a classical pianist and then, got into jazz and then I had the luck of meeting Aydın Esen and then came over here. But then, I was very, I looked down on everything from Turkey and the Middle East and everything. And George, isn't that true? A lot of this applies to you too. So that's another thing. The fact about, the connection with George I have is that I'm a little older than him, so I went through these, phases a little earlier than him. But I see exactly the same things. In our cases, we adored, everything about Western musics. I'm going to make that plural, and then only to be baffled and to discover our roots away from home. And to treasure them only to reconstruct our identities to become more complete.
Absolutely.
Mehmet, yeah. And that's why in the workshop, one of the ways that I find out that bring the globality in a musician is to break away from the traditional tetrachords orientation that we have in this system. So this is perfect. This point of view really, myself having the new band with a lot of them, I encountered this kind of situation. We hear, Joe, like if it's in A, so everybody's related. So if I hear something in A minor, Leith and Vasily will hear that in D. And that's probably what a lot of that's just point of opinion, like hearing. And this is the beauty about where we at right now. We have different ways to get at the same core, but I think there's so much potential, George, to unite, in a way that let's say somebody who grew up more in the type of years that you can hear, like I can hear the A minor tonality, but you might be hearing that D. There's a way to that's the richness about it. How do we explain that? Because we don't have to force it. If you give Joe, he'll find it right away. It's like, oh, we're in A minor. You're like, no, we're in D. And then he's like, what? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So this is what jazz is so beautiful. We got so many positive. It's the art of negotiation. That's why I call that. That's what Wayne said. We are negotiating at every second. So, but thank you very much, Mehmet, for your expertise. And everybody, wow, what a great! I feel proud of this community. Also, all the students that came today supported, and the ones that have been working with you, George. You are definitely my list of global messengers, ambassadors.
Danilo, I want to say one thing, if I may. I know we're running out of time. I just also want to personally thank you for everything. I learned so much from you during both our directed studies lessons, and every time I was around you, I feel the same thing. I feel you also have the heart of a child musically, and you're an incredible educator. And I also felt so challenged. Some of these African concepts you threw at me, like I can assure you that no one ever like made me feel so uncomfortable on the drums, that put such complex ideas on top of my head. And I learned a lot. And every directed lesson we had together, I feel, was designed for me. You have the ability to see through your students and to see what they need. And I feel I understood that you're fine tuning me, and I learned so much. And I so want to say a big thank you, personally. Thank you.
You're the one supposed to cry. You're the one supposed to cry. I'm not going to cry. Thank you, George. Love.
Thank you, Danilo, and thank you, everyone. I just want to say this was a project that was brought together because of a lot of people that were involved. It took a community to bring this to life. I want to thank again all of my advisors, all of the musicians. There's so many people here that love me and helped me and made this possible. And I want to say thank you to each one of you for helping me achieve this. Thank you.
And I would like to add, even if I don't know her, but a very special thank to your wife that supported you through this year. I think that is
absolutely.
Alexia.
Alexia, nice to meet you. Thank for being us, and thank for being supporting throughout the year.
Of course. Thank you for all your support with George and all your mentorship.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nice to meet you, and thank to all of you. This really concludes this presentation. Now we concludes this crazy year. Hopefully, this will be something we remember, and and we'll all be back on campus from September, and so in a way it's been so challenging, but it's so beautiful to end with this beautiful celebration. And with you, George, and your music, I want to remind you all tomorrow. Actually, we have the commencement, and I would like to remind you tomorrow, Mary. At what time is the commencement? Can you?
10 a.m.
And where they can find the link? Where are people able to find the link?
It's on the Grad Studies webpage.
Okay.
And I have it right here, so just let me
put it in the chat
link.
so everybody's invited, please. Tomorrow at 11. Thank you
tomorrow at 10, Marco.
At 10.
Tomorrow at 10.
Right. All right. Well then, thank you again to everybody. Mr. Lovano,
and I put that in the link. It's livestream.com Berklee Master's Commencement, 10 a.m.
A special thank to Mary and Jennifer, Xenia, and Anastasia.
Wonderful.
All the faculty, all the staff. Professor Mehmet, thank you for being with us. And I'll see you all tomorrow at the final commencement, online.
Wonderful, George. Congratulations.
Bye.
Fantastic. Woo.
Maestro.